Chapter 3. Why is it difficult to stop? All users feel something evil has possessed them. In the early days, it's a simple question of, I will stop, just not today. But eventually, we progress to believing we haven't got enough willpower to stop, or that there is something inherent in porn we must have in order to enjoy life. Porn addiction can be compared to clawing your way out of a slippery pit. As you near the top, you see the sunshine, but find yourself sliding back down as your mood dips. Eventually, you open your browser, and as you masturbate, you feel awful and try to work out why you have to do it. Ask a user, if you could go back to the time before you became hooked with the knowledge you have now, would you have started using porn? No way, would be the reply. Ask the confirmed user, someone who defends internet porn and doesn't believe it causes injury to the brain or downregulation of dopamine receptors. Do you encourage your children to use porn? No way is again the reply. Porn is an extraordinary enigma. As said previously, the problem isn't explaining why it's easy to stop. It's explaining why it's difficult. The real problem is explaining why anyone does it after getting insights of neurological damage. Part of the reason we start is because of the tens of millions already into it. Yet all of those wish they hadn't started in the first place and tell us it's like living life in second gear. We cannot quite believe they are not enjoying it. We associate it with freedom or being sex educated and work hard to become hooked ourselves. We then spend the rest of our lives telling others not to do it and trying to kick the habit ourselves. We also spend a significant proportion of our time feeling hopeless and miserable. Educating ourselves with the supernormal makes us prefer and long for these cold images, even when warm, real ones are available. Through the constant surge and fall of dopamine induced by PMO, we sentence ourselves to a lifetime of irritability, anger, stress, fatigue, and sexual dysfunction. Using porn with its absence of the best parts of sex and connection, we end up feeling miserable and guilty. In fact, reading about internet pornography's addictive and destructive capabilities here and on other sites makes us even more nervous and hopeless. What sort of hobby is it that when you're doing it, you wish you weren't, and when you aren't, you crave it? Users despise themselves every time they read about hypofrontality and desensitization. Every time they use behind their trusting partner's back, every time they can't bring themselves to exercise after a daytime session, an otherwise intelligent and rational human being spends all their days in contempt. But worst of all, what do users get from having to endure life with these awful black shadows at the back of their mind? Absolutely nothing. You might be thinking, that's all very well, I know this, but once you're hooked on these things, it's very difficult to stop. But why is it so difficult? Some say it's because of the powerful withdrawal symptoms. But as you'll soon come to learn, the actual withdrawal symptoms are so mild that you should be aware of PMOers who have lived and died without realizing they're drug addicts. Some say internet porn is free and hence humankind should claim this biological bonanza. But this is untrue. It's addictive and acts just like any drug. Ask a user that swears they only enjoy erotica, like Playboy magazines, if they've ever crossed the line to unsafe porn. And if completely honest, they would confess about the times they had unwittingly rationalized doing so, rather than not use anything at all. Enjoyment has nothing to do with it either. I enjoy crayfish, but I never got to the point where I had to have crayfish every day. With other things in life, we enjoy them while we're doing them, but we don't sit around feeling deprived when we're not. Some say, it's educational. So when's your graduation? It's sexual satisfaction. So why do it alone instead of finding a partner and saving it for them? It's a feeling of release. Release from the stresses of real life. Porn won't remove the source of the stress, but it does add to it. Many believe that porn relieves boredom, which is also a fallacy. Boredom is a frame of mind. Porn will habituate you to novelty seeking in no time, causing you to become increasingly bored until you finally participate in that wild goose chase for just the right clip, causing you to become increasingly wired to seek anything that evokes novelty, strong emotion, and eventually outrageous shock value. Some say they only do it because their friends and everyone they know does it. If so, pray that your friends don't start cutting their heads off to cure a headache. Most users who think about it come to conclude that it's just a habit. This is not really an explanation, but having discounted all the usual rational explanations, it appears to be the only remaining excuse. Unfortunately, it's equally illogical. Every day of our lives, we change habits. Some of them are very enjoyable. We have been brainwashed to believe that PMO is a habit and that habits are difficult to break. Are habits difficult to break? Drivers in the US are in the habit of driving on the right side of the road. Yet when traveling overseas, they break the habit with hardly any aggravation whatsoever. It is clearly a fallacy that habits are hard to break. We make and break habits every day of our lives. So why do we find it difficult to break a habit that makes us feel deprived when we don't have it, guilty when we do, one that we would love to break anyway, when all we have to do is stop doing it? The answer is that porn isn't a habit, it's an addiction. That's why it appears to be so difficult to give up. Most users don't understand addiction and believe that they get some genuine pleasure or crutch from porn. They believe they are making a genuine sacrifice if they quit. The beautiful truth is that once you understand the true nature of porn addiction, the reasons why you use it, you'll stop doing it. Just like that. Within 3 weeks, the only mystery will be why you found it necessary to use porn as long as you have, and why you can't persuade other users how nice it is to not be a PMOer. The sinister trap. Internet porn is the most subtle, sinister trap that man and nature have combined to devise. It's the only trap in nature whose setup doesn't require hard work. Some of us are even warned about the dangers, but we can't believe how they aren't enjoying it. But what gets us into it in the first place? Typically, free samples from amateurs and professionals who share. That's how the trap is sprung. Your first peek has stains and holes, with most thumbnails on any porn page being amateurish and homemade clips of unknown models. If the first-timer's gaze was filled only with angelic beauties and professional models, then alarm bells would ring. Due to this mismatch in clips, our young minds are reassured we will never become hooked, thinking because we don't enjoy them, we can stop whenever we want to. As intelligent human beings, we would then understand why half the adult population was systematically addicted to something, cutting down their very potential to perform what they're viewing. Curiosity brings us closer to their doorsteps, but not daring to click on some thumbnails, fearing they would make you ill. If you accidentally clicked on one, your only desire being getting away from the page as soon as possible. We then spend the rest of our lives trying to understand why we do it, telling children not to start, and at odd times trying to escape ourselves. The trap is designed such that we try and stop only due to an incident, whether sexual performance, loss of career or relationship, shortage of drive, or just plain feeling like a leper. As soon as we stop, we have more stress due to withdrawal pangs, with the method we relied on to remove that stress now unavailable. After a few days of torture, we come to the decision that we've picked the wrong time to quit. deciding we will wait for periods without stress, which, upon arriving, removes our reason for initially stopping. Of course, that period will never arrive, as we internally believe our lives tend to become more and more stressful, leaving the protection of our parents, stresses such as jobs, homemaking, mortgages, babies, bigger houses, and more babies crowd our lives. This is an illusion, the path being that the most stressful parts of any creature's life are early childhood and adolescence. We tend to confuse responsibility and stress. A user's life, like a drug addict's, automatically becomes more stressful because porn doesn't relax you or relieve stress, as some try to make you believe. It's just the reverse, causing you to become more stressed as you continue using, piling more straw onto the camel's back. Even users who kick the habit, most do one or more times throughout their lives, can lead perfectly happy lives, yet suddenly become hooked again. Wandering into the pornographic maze, our minds become hazy, and we spend the rest of our lives trying to escape. Many do succeed, only to fall into the sinister trap at a later date. Porn addiction is a complex and fascinating puzzle, and much like a Rubik's Cube, practically impossible to solve. But if you have the solution, it's simple and fun. Easy Peasy contains the solution to this puzzle, leading you out of the maze, never wandering in again. All you have to do is follow the instructions. However, if you take a wrong turn, the rest of the instructions are pointless. Anyone can find it easy to stop, but we must first establish the facts. No, not facts designed to scare you. There's already more than enough information out there. If that was going to stop you, you'd have already stopped. But why do we find it difficult to stop? Answering this requires us to know the real reason we're still using porn. Boiling down to two factors, they are nature and internet porn, and brainwashing. Porn users are intelligent, rational human beings. They know they are taking enormous future risks, so they spend lots of time rationalizing their habit. But porn users in their hearts know they are fools, knowing they had no need to use porn before becoming hooked. Most remember that their first peak was a mix of revulsion and novel curiosity. They then specialize in locating, filtering, and bookmarking sites, working hard to become hooked. Most annoyingly, there's the sense that non-addicts, most women, older guys, and people living in countries where high-speed internet porn is unavailable, aren't missing out on anything, and find the situation laughable. By dismantling these factors in the next chapters, you too will understand the sinister trap.